It's now time for another exercise so that together we can practice state management and thinking in React in general a little bit more. So together we will build this very simple accordion component where we can open and close each of these items of the accordion here. So when it's closed and we click, it opens, and when it's open and we click, it basically closes again. And each of these items has the title, or actually the number here, the title, and then the text itself. So this is here a question, and this is an answer, basically. And so we have some starter files again, which I have linked in this lecture, and the starter files are this array of frequently asked questions, and then also this CSS styles right here. So as always, you have two options. You can do it in your own VS Code. So then just go here and copy all the relevant starter data. Or of course you can fork now this code sandbox. So basically in order to create your own one. And so now I have created a new one out of the other one. And so I can safely change this one. So let's go back here to see what we have to build. And basically the entire thing here is the accordion component, and then each of them is one accordion item. And so let's start by actually building these items themselves. And remember that each one gets a number, a title, and some text. So the accordion component has actually already been created. And so now, next, let's create the accordion item. Okay, so remember that each item gets a number, it gets the title, and the text. And so let's immediately write that here basically as the props that we will receive. And so then we can immediately build with these. So just like before, we will start by building a static version of the app. So in this case of these two components. And then later we add state to the mix in order to actually make the component dynamic. So here we will return a div element. And this div has the class name that's coming from the CSS that I provided of item. Then we can immediately close that. And so then we have one paragraph for the number. So that's class name number. And then here, let's actually immediately use, again, this prop that we will receive as soon as we start including this component here anywhere. But we can already use that prop as if it already existed. So class name, then let's say text. And again here, the same thing. Let's immediately use the prop. And then finally, this one here for the icon. And by icon, I mean this minus and plus right here. So see how it toggles between plus and minus. And for now, let's start with a minus there, but we will change that later. And finally, we then have a div which will contain the content itself. So basically the text. So here the class name is content box. And then this, again, is where the actual text goes. And I see that here I have a mistake because this is actually for the title. So I'm not sure why I called that text, so the class, but yeah, never mind. Okay, and now here in this accordion, all we need to do is to loop over this array of objects like we always do. And then for each of the objects, we want to render one of these items. And actually, to make this a bit more reusable, let's accept some generic data here, basically. And so then here we pass that data in. And as the data, we use the FAQs. And so then we could reuse this same accordion with different arrays. Okay, this one here should have the class name of accordion. And then here is where the mapping will happen. So that's data.map. And then for each of these elements, and we could also call them frequently asked question, but let's just go for the generic element. And so, as we said before, we want to render one accordion item for each of them. And what do we want to pass in there? Well, the title will be at element.title. So that's this one here. And then also the text coming from that same object. So element.text. And now we also want the number. So this one here should automatically be number 1, 2, and 3. So we can do that very easily by using the index that is also passed in the map. And that's very easy to do because the callback here in the map actually also gets passed the current index. So besides the current element, it also gets the current index. So as a second argument, so let's call that I. And so then we can pass in as num simply I. And that's it. All right, so we have something here. Let's just make this a bit smaller. Well, not all of it. Let's maybe close down the sidebar. Yeah, that's a lot better. Can make it a bit smaller even. And so let's compare. So here we actually have like 0, 1, and then also the text here looks a bit different. So let's see. But yeah, the class names all look correct. But now let's just quickly take care of the numbers here. So here we want to have 0, 1, 0, 2, and 0, 3. So let's do some magic here. Let's say if the number is less than 9, then here please place a 0 and then the number plus 1. But if not, so right here, then it's just number plus 1. Okay, that looks much better. And then here, let's just change this one to title. So that should work. And yeah. And with this, let's go back to the original, because now we need to start thinking about state. So remember how we can open and close each of these boxes here individually, which basically means that each of these boxes holds their own state. So whenever we click here, you see that the UI changes. So that's the most fundamental thing that we need to think about. Whenever the UI changes, so whenever there is some update here happening in the UI, it means that we need a piece of state. Now, each of these items here operates completely independently from the other ones. So if I open this one here, nothing happens to the other two. So I can open all of them at the same time, or I can have all of them close, meaning that, again, each of them really operates in an independent way, which means that each of them must hold their own state. So again, that's because this one can be open, but this one as well. And so what that means is that we should now define a state variable in each of these items. So that's right here. And so then we use our friend useState. So let's call our state variable isOpen and set isOpen. So useState, which was then automatically imported. So this one right here, make sure you have that. And then by default, it will be false. So by default, we want each box to be closed. So we declared our state variable, and now let's use it. So that's the same 3-step process as always. We define it, we use it, and then we update it. So basically what we want to do when isOpen is false, so when this is closed, is to not display this content box down here. Or in other words, we want some conditional rendering of this part. So let's place it into the JavaScript mode, and then let's say isOpen, and then conditional rendering like this. Now, in this case, here also this should be a plus, not a minus. And so let's also come here and say is open. Then show the minus. And if not, then please show the plus. Close the JavaScript mode. And so with this, we have the pluses showing. All right. Now all we need to happen is that, of course, when we click here, the box should actually open. So you see that with the CSS style, I applied this hand cursor here to the entire div. So to the entire element. And so this is where we then want to listen for the click event. So right here on this div. So let's say on click. And then here we will pass in a function called handle toggle. And so let's go define that function. So just like before, we just define an outside function with the keyword of handle here, which is totally optional, but it makes it easy to understand that this is a function that will be used as an event handler. And so now here, let's use set is open, and then we take the current one. So we can just call it current if we want. Of course, we can also call it is open. Yeah, anything works. And then we just want to do the opposite. All right. So that didn't work yet. Maybe let's just reload here. That is sometimes necessary. And yes, that works. And if I close again, it closes. Beautiful. Now here we have some errors, and that's just because of the key prop. So here we need to pass in a unique key prop, and we could now actually use I, which is unique actually. So it's this 0, 1, and 2 coming from the array iteration, but it's better to not rely on that and instead use something that's truly unique. So that's, for example, the title of each element. Close this one here. And indeed, it works on all of them. There's just one small detail missing, which is that when this is open, we get this green border here and all the text becomes green. So that's just one special class that gets added to the item whenever it is open. So on the item, that's right here. So again, we want to add a second class here in case that it is open. And so for that, we need some more conditional rendering, basically, in this case of classes. So here we now need to construct a template string or a template literal, which already has the item string. And then here, based on a condition, so based on is open, we either want to add open or nothing. And that's it. And that works. Well, this kind of didn't become green for some reason. Let's check out our CSS here maybe. Maybe there's something that I didn't do right. Yeah, so here it should be title. Yes, beautiful. And with this, we actually finished this accordion, at least for now. So later in this section, there is the second part of this exercise where we will make it a bit more realistic, where only one of these three can be opened at the same time.